Good morning, everyone. Please have a seat. Good morning and welcome to U.S. Institute of Peace. My name is Nancy Lindborg. I'm the president of USIP, and we're delighted that we could have you all here today. On behalf of USIP and our co-host today, the Atlantic Council, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the International Foundation for Electoral Systems, the International Republican Institute, and the National Democratic Institute, it is my distinct honor today to welcome our special guest, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, the President of Nigeria. Welcome and thank you. I'd also like to welcome a very distinguished Nigerian delegation, which includes many current and former governors and members of the Nigerian government. We're delighted to have you all here with us today. And I want to give a special thanks to Assistant Secretary of Africa Affairs, Ambassador Linda Thomas Greenfield, as well as Ambassador James Entwistle, both of whom I believe are here, and without whom, where are they? Up there. As well as Ambassador Ade Adefuye, and Nigeria's ambassador to the U.S. And without these three individuals, I'm certain we wouldn't be here today. They've been invaluable partners in putting this day together, so many thanks. And I also want to give a special welcome to Zainab Bangura, the UN Secretary General's Special Representative for Sexual Violence and Conflict, and it's wonderful to have you here with us today. It's wonderful to have all of you here today. We have an overflow crowd. We also have many people following us on a webcast. And for those of you who are on Twitter, please remember to use hashtag BuhariDC to help expand this conversation well beyond the building today. So this is a big day. We are so delighted to have you here, President Buhari. Following this milestone election, it's a wonderful moment for us all to pause together to recognize and celebrate the peaceful transfer of power. This is the first time an opposition candidate has won the presidency in Nigeria through the ballot, not through bullets. So it's a remarkable achievement. And it's a milestone actually for the entire continent as a number of other countries wrestle with this issue of term limits. So we are delighted to have this conversation with you today. President Buhari has made a commitment, including during his 3-day visit here, to establish a stronger and more inclusive government to tackle corruption, address the insurgency of Boko Haram, and in doing so, Nigeria can seize this moment to reclaim its role as a leader on the continent. Nigeria has been a priority for USIP for over a decade. We have had a wonderful partnership with Imam Muhammad Shefa and Pastor James Wuye of the Interfaith Mediation Center, and through that partnership, we've witnessed the commitment of Nigerian leaders, of communities of people to come together to resolve differences and to lay a groundwork for a shared, sustainable peace. We look forward to our continuing efforts. We make a commitment to continue to support that journey forward, and we wish best success to new leadership and to the people of Nigeria as they move forward. I'm pleased now to introduce a wonderful colleague and a longtime leader, Ambassador Johnny Carson, who is our senior advisor at the U.S. Institute of Peace. He's the former Secretary of State for African Affairs. Ambassador Carson was on the ground during this momentous moment when he co-led NDI's International Election Observer Mission to Nigeria in March. Ambassador Carson was a 3-time ambassador on the continent. He's had a distinguished career in the U.S. government where he was and he continues to be one of the strong voices working to ensure that we all understand and support Nigeria's critical role. Please join me in welcoming Ambassador Carson.
Good morning. I would like to take this opportunity to add my welcome to all of those who have joined us this morning for this very, very special event. We are absolutely delighted to have His Excellency President Buhari with us this morning. This is clearly one of the largest audiences ever for a speaker here, and this turnout is a testament to the enormous goodwill of the people of Washington, D.C. for you personally, Mr. President, and for your country as well. Nigeria occupies a very special place in Africa as an increasingly important member of the global community and as a full partner in the family of democratic nations. Nigeria is Africa's most important country, its largest economy, its largest producer of petroleum, and its largest telecom, media, and banking sector. Nigeria is also today Africa's largest democracy. And for those who haven't noticed, it is indeed the 6th largest democracy in the world. Nigeria's significance as a nation cannot be ignored or denied. President Buhari also occupies a very special place in Nigeria and its still evolving political and democratic history. On March 28, 2015, President Buhari won a very convincing victory over then-President Goodluck Jonathan, marking the first time in Nigeria's history that an opposition candidate had unseated an incumbent head of state. This is also one of the very few times this has happened in Africa. Domestic and international observers all describe the elections as free and fair and a genuine expression of the will of the Nigerian people. President Goodluck Jonathan stepped down graciously and without any violence. The election was a victory for the people of Nigeria, for democracy in Nigeria, and also a continued positive trajectory for democracy in sub-Saharan Africa. But more than anything else, the election was a personal triumph for President Buhari, a political leader who had contested and lost 3 previous national elections, elections that were marred by controversy and violence, and in 2007 in particular by widespread vote rigging and fraud. Despite these injustices and controversies, President Buhari never gave up on democracy, and he never gave up on the electoral process. He never abandoned the deep social and ethical convictions that have guided him throughout his life and that motivated him to run for his country's highest office. President Buhari has devoted most of his adult life to the service of his country as a career military officer, a senior cabinet minister, and briefly, nearly 30 years ago, as his country's military head of state. He has been described frequently by those who know him as a very modest man, a very humble man, but a very strong, courageous, and firm leader, a man of enormous integrity and honesty, and a man committed to good governance and to improving the lives of his fellow citizens. As he begins his tenure, President Buhari will need to draw on all of his leadership and management skills. Nigeria faces multiple challenges: security problems in the Northeast with Boko Haram, financial and budget challenges caused by declining oil prices, pervasive corruption in the oil sector, and serious power shortages. During his campaign for the presidency and in his post-inaugural speeches, President Buhari has signaled very clearly that he is ready to take on the tough and demanding task of governance, that he is aware of his country's problems, and that he will not be deterred or intimidated by the challenges that he faces. This morning, we have an opportunity, a special opportunity, to hear from President Buhari about how his new government intends to tackle the challenges that confront Nigeria today, and how he intends to move his country forward as an important player, not only in Africa, but also in the global community. Mr. President, it is my honor and great pleasure to welcome you to the podium. We look forward to hearing your vision for Nigeria, for Africa's largest and most dynamic nation and its largest democracy. Welcome, Mr. President.
Please sit down, ladies and gentlemen. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I am overwhelmed by the nice introduction by Ambassador Carson. I hope by the end of my speech, you will agree with him that I have justified what he said about me. I'm delighted to be here this morning, and I wish to thank the United States Institute for Peace, the Center for Strategic and International Studies, the Atlantic Council, the National Democratic Institute, the International Republican Institute, and the International Foundation of Electoral System for providing me this platform to share with this distinguished audience of eminent personalities my hopes and thoughts about my country, Nigeria. The think tanks that came together to organize today's event are by no means new to Nigeria. Several of them, and a good number of individuals, have over the years organized meetings and symposia to shed light on diverse issues pertaining to Nigeria. Others, like the National Democratic Institute, NDI, International Republican Institute, IRI, and the International Foundation for Electoral System, IFES, have for a long period been partners in Nigeria's electoral processes. The contributions of the International Republican Institute, National Democratic Institute, and International Foundation of Electoral Systems to the success of the 2015 general election in Nigeria are well documented. I would like to use this opportunity to thank them for their partnership and support to the democratization process in Nigeria. Your doggedness in calling a spade in 2003, 2007, and 2011 have been greatly appreciated by us Nigerians who are dedicated to ensuring free and fair elections in our country. My appreciation also goes to the Center for Strategic and International Studies, United States Institute for Peace, and the Atlantic Council for their continued engagement and interest in Nigeria. The unique perspectives and clarity you bring to bear on your analysis of contemporary issues in Nigeria are of profound importance to my country. Thank you for the interest you have consistently shown on election in my country. Naturally, being far removed from the arena of action and not being participants in the events you analyze on a regular basis has its own pitfalls. The most common being armchair analysis. Let me illustrate with just one example. In the months leading up to the recent general election in Nigeria, very few in the mass media and the policy community here in Washington gave Nigeria as little as half a chance to pull through. All over the city, the common view held and frequently expressed was of Nigeria on the brink. As far as the critics and doomsday merchants were concerned, Nigeria's end was the 2015 general elections. Nigeria was not expected to make it. The general perception was that Nigeria would be undone by violent and disputed elections riven with deep ethnic and religious divisions. You all know what happened. Nigeria compounded the pessimists and its critics. All those who predicted the worst possible post-election scenarios for Nigeria missed the mark by very wide margins. Because the premises upon which their narratives were based were simply wrong. The peaceful conduct and outcome of 2015 general elections attest to the fact that elections in Africa can be conducted in a free, fair, and credible manner, just like in any other part of the world. Those elections were different from previous ones, not only because citizens were allowed to vote, but more importantly, because their votes counted. I must therefore salute the patriotism and commitment of Nigerian people who conducted themselves peacefully and responsibly during and after the elections. Similarly, I must also commend the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the civil society organizations, and other non-state actors for their various efforts at improving the electoral process and entrenching the democratic culture. I would like to seize this opportunity also to once again pay tribute to my predecessor, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, for his uncommon display of statesmanship in setting the pace for Africa. His conduct and outlook in the aftermath of the elections have further proven that the African electoral system is gaining strength and maturity. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, important lessons are being learned from the successful conduct of those elections. Our electoral processes are evolving. Nigerians of all political leanings recognize that there is much work to be done to improve electoral transparency and the integrity of elections. I feel confident that going forward, our electoral body will apply lessons learned to improve its processes, including the use of appropriate technologies in the conduct of elections and innovative approaches to voter education. To this end, I intend to raise the cost of impunity by working with the National Assembly to strengthen our electoral laws in ways that will provide stiffer penalties against all forms of electoral malpractices. The enforcement of the laws would equally be given greater impetus. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, on the issue of terrorism, Nigerians have lived with fear and insecurity for far too long. The human and material costs of the insurgency in my country and to my people are staggering and unacceptable. Defeating Boko Haram and finding a durable solution to the underlying causes of the insecurity in Nigeria are therefore a major priority of the new administration. Nigerians understand that terrorism stifles development and undermines the stability of society. The government that I lead is committed and will do whatever it takes to free Nigeria from the menace of terrorism. No matter how long it takes, we will reclaim every inch of Nigerian territory that is under the control of Boko Haram. We shall continue to do this within the framework of the rule of law and in compliance with our international and domestic human rights obligations. Excuse me. Let me emphasize that as a government, we have no illusions whatsoever about the enormity of the challenges ahead of us. We know that it will be a long and bruising struggle, but this is a fight we are in to win. Failure is not an option for us. We do not contemplate it. In the first week of my presidency, I visited Chad, Niger, to strengthen cooperation within the Lake Chad Basin Commission members. The primary region of the Boko Haram insurgency. Upon my return to Nigeria from the United States, I shall visit Cameroon on the 29th of this month to further strengthen our sub-regional efforts of counter-reacting terrorism. Already, I have released $21 million United States dollars for the rapid take-up of the multinational joint task force. This is the force set open by the countries of the Lake Chad Basin Commission, comprising Cameroon, Chad, Nigeria plus Benin, to jointly combat insurgency. We are confident that we will defeat terrorism in our country and region because we have the will to win this fight. We will win because we have the support of the Nigerian people who voted us into office to do things differently in order to secure them from harm and provide for their prosperity and well-being. We will win because the United States and indeed the international community have pledged to stand with us in solidarity. But winning the battle against terrorism means we have to do things differently. After all, the race for the future will never be won by going backwards or standing still. Winning means we must change our strategy in a manner that will prioritize the mobilization of maximum capacity to fight terrorism, while ensuring the safety and protection of local communities in the front line of the fight against terrorism. We are also improving cooperation and coordination with our neighbors and other international partners to add depth and muscle to our overall strategy. In our efforts at combating the activities of Boko Haram, the new government has sought and obtained the support of not only our neighbors, other international friends and partners. Regrettably, the blanket application of the Lise law by the United States on the grounds of unproven allegations of human rights violations leveled against our forces has denied us access to appropriate strategic weapons to prosecute the war against the insurgents. In the face of abduction of innocent schoolgirls from their hotels, indiscriminate bombings of civilians in markets and places of worship, our forces have remained largely impotent because they do not possess the appropriate weapons and technology which we could have had the so-called human rights violations not been an obstacle. Unwittingly, and I dare say unintentionally, the application of the Lise law amendment by the United States government has aided and abetted the Boko Haram terrorists in the prosecution of its extremist ideology and hate, the indiscriminate killings and maiming of civilians, in raping of women and girls, and in their other heinous crimes. I believe this is not the spirit of the Lise laws. I know the American people cannot support any group engaged in these crimes. I therefore strongly appeal to both the executive arm and the United States Congress to examine how the United States government can provide us with far more substantial counter-terrorism assistance with minimal strings. The longer we delay, the deadlier the Boko Haram gets. At all events, we have rewritten the rules of engagement, protecting the rights of combatants, and in particular, safeguarding civilians in theaters of conflict. As we ramp up our efforts to defeat Boko Haram, we know that winning this battle, sustainability, will require that we expand economic opportunities and create jobs for our teeming young population. We must also improve the quality of governance, ensure that governments at all levels are responsive, inclusive, transparent, and accountable, and that public institutions deliver services in a timely and efficient manner. We must win and sustain the trust of the people we govern. Ladies and gentlemen, the fight against corruption is a full-time job that the federal government will carry with sustained resolve. I have always maintained zero tolerance for corruption. I am even more committed to fighting this number one enemy decisively because I am convinced, beyond any shadow of a doubt, that the much needed impetus for our country's survival is held back by corruption. I will not allow this to continue. Again, as with every action of the government that I did, we would be fair, just, and scrupulously follow due process and the rule of law as enshrined in our Constitution. I will lead by example to ensure the prudent management of Nigeria's resources. The government will plug the leakages that fuel corruption in Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that the future of Nigeria, indeed the future of Africa, lies in democratic governance, not only because it is the expression of the will of the people, but because democracy can help us build fair, just, and inclusive societies. Only in a democracy can Africa's numerous ethnic, cultural, and religious diversities find harmonious expression and the freedom and opportunities that come with it. The federal government is well aware that building a strong economy will help us build a prosperous, stable, and secure country, a nation where democracy will thrive, businesses will flourish, and where citizens can live and pursue their dreams with dignity and freedom under the protection of the law. I believe the United States can help the democratization process gain roots by investing in the expansion of our educational, health, and economic opportunities for the millions of our youth. Ladies and gentlemen, fixing Nigeria's problems, as formidable as they are, is the responsibility of Nigerians. The international community can only assist, but the hard work belongs to Nigerians and their government. I will, as president, lead from the front, but all Nigerians, including the opposition parties, civil society, business and religious leaders, public servants, labor unions, the youth and professional associations, all have important roles to play to get our country back on a sound economic footing. The political opposition must see itself as an integral part in ensuring development and good governance for the citizenry. Governance in a democracy is always a shared responsibility, a fact underscored by the current power configuration in Nigeria, in which the opposition parties not only has a strong representation in the National Assembly, but also control 14 out of the 36 states in our federal arrangement. In the United States, the Republicans are in fact in control of both houses of Congress. Ladies and gentlemen, let me end by restating here that despite our current challenges, Nigeria's commitment to good governance, anti-corruption, democracy, and security of lives and property remains firm. Similarly, I must reaffirm that despite the current challenges that we face domestically, we are ready and willing to face our duties to international peace, stability, security and development as we have done in the past. We shall not shirk our international responsibilities and obligations. We shall do what is expected of us. Once again, I am honored for this opportunity and delighted to share my thoughts with this very distinguished audience. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Please sit down. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mr. President, thank you very, very much for a very stimulating and informative address. Just for the sake of the audience, the President has agreed to take a few questions. What I would like to do is to call on the representatives of several of the co-host organizations to address their questions to the President. They will do that by microphone. The remainder of the questions will be taken in written text. But before I call on the representatives of some of the co-host organizations, Mr. President, I would like to start the discussion with you by asking two questions. One question is one that you've probably been asked and will be asked many times over the next week or so by your colleagues in government and by others in Nigeria. And that is, you've had an opportunity over the last 3 days to meet with President Obama, with Vice President Biden, Secretary of State Kerry, Secretary of Treasury Jack Lew, and probably most of the senior members of the U.S. cabinet. How do you assess that visit, your visit, and how do you think you've come out of it? The second question for me involves a historical question. You mentioned very briefly in your speech that you had served as head of state for approximately 20 months, nearly 30 years ago. What lessons do you take from that previous experience as head of state that you will learn and apply and use as you move forward in your current tenure as president?
Thank you very much for your difficult questions. The first one, I'm very impressed with the position taken by President Obama and the United States. I think this became very clear to us in Nigeria from the time Secretary of State Kerry went to Nigeria, saw the former president, saw the chairman of the Electoral Commission, Professor Jiga, and saw the opposition. And to be candid, read the Riot Act to us as Nigerians, that the United States will not accept unconstitutional conduct of the elections. And the pressure was sustained by the United States up to the last day. I think this is the best thing that happened to Nigeria for a very long time. And I think I'm in a position to assess that, having tried to become the president 3 times. and having failed 3 times, and having ended up in the Supreme Court 3 times. For that, we will ever remain grateful to the United States. Because it has stabilized the polity in Nigeria, and certainly is going to stabilize democracy. And therefore improve security and the economy. And I assure you that Nigerians are very grateful for that. On your second question, you ought to have educated the audience, not that they don't know, that the last time I was head of state, I came in a different form. I came in a camouflage. Although I ended up in detention for more than the time I was in government. But that's part of the experience, I think, that I enjoyed. So I don't think I can compare the experiences of my first being head of state or being military president and now being an elected president. It's very difficult to compare, but perhaps I would compliment your question by saying that you have asked what kept me trying on and on. Mainly, I think, is what happened in 1991 when I went home after serving my detention. I think I was underutilized, but then suddenly the Soviet Union collapsed. And that made a large impression on me, a significant one. An empire in the 20th century collapsed without a shot being fired, and everybody ran home. And then 18 republics developed from the Soviet Union. That was when I was convinced, having been in the military for 25 years or so, that the multi-party democratic system was the best form of governance. With the caveat that elections must be free and fair. I have said this so often because I believe in it. That was why I decided to be a politician. And I registered as one in April 2002. And by the following year, that party, although it had governors, it had senators, gave me the ticket. Of course, you know I lost. And I spent 30 months in court. And I guess the significance of that is exposing our institutions. After 27 months from lower court to Supreme Court, we went and made presentation in Supreme Court for 2 3/4 hours. The following day, the panel of Supreme Court went on a 3-month holiday. When they came back, it took them 45 minutes to dismiss our case. In 2007, I tried again. And thank goodness the international observer teams, they mention it. The 2007 election was conducted in a most dishonorable way. I think I spent 20 months. Again, the Supreme Court said, oh, well, the court was divided into 2. There were a panel of 6 justices of the Supreme Court, presided over by the Chief Justice, who formed the number 7. 3 justices said the election was not conducted according to law. Therefore, they have annulled it. 3 justices said, well, there were some flaws, but all the same, PDP has won. The Chief Justice cast his vote with those that said PDP won. So I lost 3-4, as if it were rehearsed. In 2011, again I attempted and I lost. And I spent, I think, 8 or 9 months in court. So here I am after the 4th attempt.
Mr. President, that is democratic perseverance.
Thank you very much.
We're running very short of time, and I'm going to ask 2 people in the audience. We're going to try and squeeze in maybe 3 or 4 questions, but I'm going to ask the first 2 people to identify themselves quickly, ask their questions. I'm going to call on Jennifer Cook, CSIS, one of our co-hosts, if she would ask her question, if there is a microphone for her. I would also like to have Chris Famunyo, National Democratic Institute, give the second question. We're going to try and squeeze in very quickly. President's on a tight schedule. Can we get that down there quickly? And somebody could tee up the microphone for Chris Famunyo if he's here. Is Chris? Okay, got it.
Okay.
Sorry.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, and welcome to Washington, and thank you to USIP for hosting. The expectations on you are extremely high to deliver very quickly. And as you pointed out in your really excellent inaugural address, the federal government is really one of many governments in Nigeria. And in so many cases, kind of where the citizens' first contact with the government is with a local government or with their state government. So expectations on you are so high, but you do not control all the players. You mentioned in your inaugural address that you called for accountability for good governance at all levels of government. But how can you help to make that happen, and what role might external partners play in that as well? Thank you.
Well, I think mercifully the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria has tried as much as possible, I think, to clearly define the responsibilities of the 3 tiers of government. And also the revenue allocation formula has also tried to do as much justice as possible, so that the federal government do not take the lion's share of the revenue, disproportionate the constitutional responsibilities for the 3 tiers of government. All I am left to do as the president, head of the federal government, is to appeal to the other 2 tiers of government leadership, the governors, with their cabinet. It's a pity some of them are here. I hope no governor was here. And the chairman of the local governments, to make sure they follow the system in terms of how to use this revenue that gets to them according to the constitutional allocations in terms of sustaining development and offering social services. So that was why I said I realized my limitations. That was why I included what you quote in my address. There is a limit to what I can do. All I did, I think, is a subtle blackmail that I will look at the accounts. That's all I could do. Thank you very much.
Chris.
Your Excellency, congratulations on your elections and welcome to Washington. I want to really thank you and the Nigerian people for giving NDI, IFS, IRI, and several other organizations the opportunity to stand by you as you work to strengthen your democratic institutions and practices. So looking at the 2015 elections, two constituencies that really worked extremely hard in Nigeria for those elections to be credible, and that also worked for you because they believed in you, are the Nigerian women and the Nigerian youth. So my question is, what concrete plans do you have to make sure that the Nigerian women and the Nigerian youth can see that their investment in the democratic process of your country is worthwhile, and that they get some dividends from your program and the program of your administration?
Can we do this before the President responds to Chris's question? We're going to try and squeeze in a couple more of these. Dr. Pauline Baker will have the next question, and then Dr. Connie Newman, former Assistant Secretary of State for Africa, will have the final question. Pauline, pass the mic. And we'll
Thank you very much.
Can I answer this question first?
Sure.
Yes.
The first
sir.
question.
Yeah.
I'm not too confident about my memory, so I have to take it. I have to take it one by one. Thank you very much for your question, but I observe that you are reporting me to my constituency. Certainly the youth, and I mentioned in several places, came out very strongly to support me, as well as women. But remember again what I said? I say I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody. I will work for the constituencies and try to get a clear priorities which we have identified as a party. If you had the opportunity to have a look at our manifesto, we identified 3 fundamental problems in Nigeria: security, lack of economy and employment, and corruption. I think if we pursue this, as we intend to do, all constituencies on reflection will eventually congratulate us. Thank you very much.
Last 2 questions, and briefly, Dr. Pauline Baker.
Mr. President, welcome. And I've been a student of Nigeria for many years. And first of all, I want to tell you that I have never seen such a hopeful attitude toward Nigeria and the United States as since your election. So I think we are all here. I want you to succeed. My question relates to another area of Nigeria that hasn't gotten much attention during this trip, and that is the Niger Delta. It's a challenge that you're going to face. I wonder if you would tell us how you intend to approach it, with particular reference to the amnesty, bunkering, and inclusive development. Thank you.
Inclusive government.
Inclusive government, how you include, women, youth.
I see. Yes. I hope you have a copy of the election results. Naturally, constituencies, for example, that year gave me 97%, cannot, in all honesty, be treated on some issues with constituencies that gave me 5%. I think this is a political reality. While certainly there will be justice for everybody, everybody will get his constitutional right. But while the party in constituencies that by their either sheer hard work, they made sure that they got their people to vote and to ensure their vote count. They must feel that the government has appreciated the effort they put in putting the government in place. I think that's really fair and deliberate. By the Constitution, no state can be excluded from government. So there is no way, even if I want to show gratitude to those constituencies that heavily voted for me, against those that didn't even vote for me, they have the protection of the government. And I have made an undertaking in that. That I belong to everybody, I belong to nobody. If I come clearly and show and marginalize a certain group because they didn't vote for me, then I have already contradicted myself. And I'm sure people will be too quick to pick that against me.
Thank you, Mr. President. Dr. Connie Newman, representative of IRI.
Mr. President, congratulations, first of all. I have a question that is going to be easy for me to ask, probably easy for you to answer, and very hard for you to do. And that is this. There's so much goodwill, not just in the United States, but all over the world, to have you succeed. And my question is, how are you going to coordinate all of the office and the resources so that they don't end up operating at cross purposes and you're able to leverage them in a way that's responsive to your needs?
Yeah, yesterday, I have to try to answer this question, although you didn't ask it yesterday, you asked it today. When I have an audience with Nigerians at our embassy, the question of the amount of goodwill and the high expectation vis-a-vis the lack of resources on the ground and the insecurity. How can I come out of this major problem that I put myself in? Because if I don't ask for the vote and got it, I wouldn't have been the president. I asked for it, I have got it, then it has become my problem. And I even told the audience yesterday, already in Nigeria, they started calling me from Baba Buhari, which means Father Buhari, to Baba Go Slow, that I'm too slow. So I took a long time to explain. But I think the goodwill you said that I enjoyed at home and again, thank God, and abroad now, I will try and maintain it, as I said, by working very hard and as visibly as possible so that people will see and believe that I'm trying. And I hope they will believe that I'm trying hard enough so that they will continue to give me the opportunity in maybe becoming less critical so that I can deliver under the circumstances. Besides the human factors that are now available, the real problem, how the cost of crude has plummeted, and then the insecurity resulting in the theft of an average of more than 250,000 barrels a day of Nigerian crude. And the insecurity there of abduction of some oil executives and demand of a ransom in hard currency, which aggravates our security problem. And then the Northeast problem. All the same, I intend to sustain this goodwill by performance. I will work very hard, and I believe I will succeed.
Mr. President, thank you for a very, very informative and stimulating conversation. And as you can tell from this audience, we all wish you enormous goodwill and good luck as you pursue your responsibilities over the next 4 years. We have characterized you as a man of great honesty, integrity, and commitment to good governance. I think based on this conversation this morning, we also will have to say that you are a man of enormously goodwill and great humor. You have turned a few phrases here that have caught our attention. And we know that you have not only candor but good humor to go along with it. Please join me in one last round of applause as the President departs. And I'm going to ask the audience to remain in place until the President and his immediate party leave. So please let the President and his delegation move out before anyone else moves. And again, thank you all very much for coming. And Mr. President, we look forward here at USIP to having you back again to have a continuation of this conversation.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And bye-bye.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain in your seats until the official party departs.